The third unit I want to cover for the Tomb Kings, especially for High Queen Khalida, is the Sepulcral Stalk. Now, it turns out that these didn't originally start with actual Stalk. But I want to explain something. They're not very good at stalking. They're not very good at being sneaky and backstabbing and all that stuff. They're not assassins. They're not good at it. You shouldn't bother trying to use them as that unless it's an ideal circumstance. So I'll walk you through this because they're different. They are substantially different from the other things that you have. Armor is 80, which is very decent. They don't have any shields. Speed is 50, which is very decent, but it's old chariot level. I mean, old war wagon level. Melee attack, 22. That's pretty horrible. Yes, they can be buffed. Khalida buffs them. They do have magical attacks, but how often are you facing something that is vulnerable to magical attacks? That would be what? Savage Orcs? That would be ethereal units. Are you fighting Vampire Coast a lot? That's Khalida? No, you are not. So it's a difficult situation. Melee defense, only 30. So even though that's, I mean, there are monstrous infantry, there are 16 of them, they have decent HP, but the melee defense is not great. I mean, compared to your Tomb King with halberds, I mean, they have 47 melee defense, unbuffed. And that's the Regiment of Renown unit. Anyway, charge bonus, 10. Awful, awful, awful. Ammunition, which is also magical, 12. Awful, awful, awful. Their weapon strength, base weapon damage 23, armor piercing weapon damage 52, which is pretty good. Bonus versus large, 18. So 18 plus 22 means that they're 40 against a large target. And that means that they're awful in melee against small targets, which is why I covered the Necropolis Knights with so much favor, because if you're fielding both of these, and they come from the same building, they come from the same building tier. So if you're fielding both, you can't rely on the Stalkers to take down small units. I mean, small, they could be Saurus warriors, which are, a lot bigger than dwarves, but they're still man-sized, quote-unquote. The range, 80. That's awful. They actually don't come with skirmish mode either. 80 is awful. And if they're at the edge of the 80, then they're only going to be plinking with the first row of the 2 rows of the units that they have. On Ultra, that would be 16 models, so you'd have 8 of them trying to get their attacks in. Missile strength. Oh baby! Oh baby! Base missile damage 26. Armor piercing missile damage 104. Reload time 10 seconds. That's really good. They are so powerful with these shots. Basically, these shots are half the value of the units. And that's a problem. Because if that's half the value of the units, it's a big problem because they fire as if they are thunderers with half the range. They're direct line of fire shooters. They cannot fire over the heads of your skeleton spearmen or what have you. It's just not going to happen. They cannot fire over the heads of basically anything. So how do you deal with this? How do you actually get them to deliver their damage? Because obviously, yes, they can take maybe one shot at a charging cavalry unit. And if they're cavalry, then they'll walk into the bonus versus large and sort of get mauled, but it's more like they'll get held. They'll get held and they'll get willed down to some degree, but all this power in these shots will be wasted. How do you get them to shoot? Well, I'll cover that in more detail in the next video too, but it basically comes down to single entities that are tanking and holding ground and allowing them to shoot. And that's why I say these are not flankers. they may look like flankers, it is a trap, because they are much better in a different role. And that is not simply holding the line. I mean, if I was to say hold the flanks, then you get the same problem. Cavalry will converge on them and eliminate their opportunities to fire. So the actual way to use them, the actual way, is to have them hold the center. And because they have Stalk, they're not going to be hit by artillery if artillery is aiming at whatever's in front of them. So you need something in front of them. It's hard to justify using Kalita to do that job, because she buffs the shots. You want her intermingled with the Stalkers if at all possible, but there are other solutions. The point is, the ideal thing is to have something causing advancing troops, advancing cavalry, to stop momentarily, and then you pour in the full power of these shots. 104 armor piercing a shot, and you have 16 models on Ultra. This is really powerful stuff. It will shred lords. It will, well, especially large ones at least. It will shred monsters. It will shred all sorts of single entities. It will shred large, monstrous cavalry. It will shred chariots. That's what you want. That's what you really want. But it's just difficult to make that actually happen. And that's something I want to emphasize, because that's why it's not the MVP of the army. It's not the Ushabtis with Great Bows. It can't do the job of the Necropolis Knights, and vice versa. They are powerful, but they are tricky to use, and they are often traps for you. So the best way to use them is to use them to form a center line, and to stop the enemy's advance long enough that they can just shoot the enemy apart. And then whatever survives, they can help deal with and stop in the center, and stop them from getting to your other missile units, such as Ushabti Great Bows. Not limited to them, but definitely involving them. Anyway, that's all for now, and we'll see more in future episodes how this all comes together.